Hello, folks. It is June 3rd, 2021, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about all things Backdrop. This week in particular, we're basically opening up the doors, looking at the future ahead for Backdrop 1.20, which will be coming out September 15th, 2021. And we're just going to be going through some items that some of them are long-term feature requests, some of them are more recent, and just looking at feasibility and planning and deciding how to move forward on some of these features. So we'll do some quick introductions first. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm in Oakland, California. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet, and I am a core committer for the project. Let's go ahead and get an intro from Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg, usually in Australia, but currently in Greece. Interested in anything related to Backdrop and any way that I can help. Just joining the meeting so that we can do the planning and see what's going on with the future. Tim?
Yeah, I'm not muted, am I? Nope. I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and really busy this week. Might have skipped the meeting, but I really wanted to be here for this discussion. So I look forward to hearing what people want to do with 1.1 or 1.20, 1, 2, whatever.
You can 120.
So Justin, have you went yet?
I'm Justin Christopherson. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I just help out with infrastructure tasks here and there. And I'll pass it back to Nate.
All right. Thanks, Justin. So 1.20, September 15th is our release date. We kind of have this opportunity to take a look at features that we've tried to do in the past, see if we can get some energy behind some of those items, as well as, like, of course, we're always open to new ideas and new features that haven't been brought up before. But unfortunately, a lot of our biggest problems are not new. Like, we know what our biggest features are and the biggest holes are in the system. And it's a matter of getting the energy and willpower behind those specific issues to bring them to completion. Also, almost every single one of the items that we have mentioned in the past, they have like an existing effort behind them. Most of them have even been started to the point of like maybe 60 to 75%. And it's getting things to completion that, of course, is the tricky and difficult part of everything. A lot of that comes down to upgrades or migrations, or figuring out what to do with the legacy version of these modules. And maybe with some new ideas or some new approaches, we might be able to make compromises to say, okay, these things that the upgrade path is really difficult on, let's try to find a way to transition those things, possibly that it's like not quite as comprehensive as we might have hoped, but moves the ball forward. So the list of items that is fairly comprehensive. Tim put together a survey site a long time ago, survey.backdropcms.org, that we kind of just like loosely assembled a list of features. They were proposed via the forums and then assembled into the survey. And then the responses were accrued of like what were the most popular things to work on via voting. And so going through that list, we get a mix of stuff that's been long-term features and stuff that also we have tried to get solved more recently, like as in like 119, and we just didn't quite complete it. So running through that list is probably a really good starting point. The number one feature that was requested in that survey was adding field group functionality to core, issue 647, which has always been a surprise to me that one rated so highly. This is one that, as far as I know, I don't think there's no pull request behind it. There's really just a discussion. And it's issue 647. There is a contrib module for Backdrop that provides this functionality. So pulling it into core could be one of the easier things that we could potentially try to tackle. Greg, I think you were participating in this discussion a bit. I'm curious if you know if there's any variation where people are talking about, well, the contrib module is nice, but what I really want isn't exactly what the contrib module provides. If there's like variations or an adjustment that we would do to make it into a core.
I haven't looked into that discussion for quite a while, but as you say, the reason why there's no pull request yet is because the contrib module exists. I can't recall people saying that they want anything additional. It's more tight integration with core and out of the box functionality, I guess. Yeah. So I guess people expect it to be installed and provided out of the box.
Yeah, I'm seeing like just skimming over it that there was some discussion saying, oh my gosh, the UI needs to be redone because it doesn't scale well. While other people are saying, well, maybe we should just put it in as is right now because that's what people want, and
Iterate.
And then iterate. Yeah, exactly. Although for something like this, it makes me a little bit nervous that field group module and contrib has the opportunity right now to do the iteration in contrib, and it's not really happening, you know. And so I'd be a little bit worried that the odds of us iterating on, you know, I mean, it's moderately important or moderately requested, but it's not like a point of contention. Like usually if things work, even if they're a little bit cumbersome, the priority on fixing the cumbersomeness is not really very high. Like field UI is the classic example of like field UI is a super clunky, not fun interface to do, yet we haven't, you know, put in the effort to like rework the way the field UI works. So I think that if we were to pursue this current approach of let's just put in what we have, then it'd be pretty unlikely that we'd iterate it on in the future. But that might not be a problem. You know, maybe if we get the functionality in core and that's what people want, you know, then they'll be okay with the interface that we have because the feature is there.
Yeah, and what usually happens is that people that are using the core product usually get annoyed by little things that they see every day. So if it's right in the face, that's when they start, you know, fixing things and working. At least that's the case for me, and I know it's the same for Peter and the rest of the people. So I guess, yeah, the more they start using it, the more quirks will be fleshed out and fixed, I guess.
Yeah, I think this comes down to also a continuing pattern that we've always kind of said that Backdrop in a way differentiates from Drupal in that core is where most of the attention is and most of the focus is. And when stuff is in core, it's more likely to improve than when it's in contrib in the world of Backdrop, which you know, that's very different than the world of Drupal, where once it's in core, it kind of, you know, gets frozen in time. So there's that difference too, I suppose, that putting it in core could actually increase the likelihood of it happening.
Yeah, and I guess the more complex sites being built, the more this functionality is required. I'm looking at the screenshot provided by, was it Phil Sword?
Yeah.
The last comment.
Yeah.
Huge thing, but so it seems that people are using either that or a combination of that and paragraphs to build things. So yeah.
Well, let's kind of keep going because we've got a lot of possible features to get through. The next one on the list is, according to survey results, is allowing multiple file or image uploads, issue 1380. This discussion in the core issue queue is also kind of an interesting one. There's no pull request yet on getting this started, but there is a discussion about how we would want to handle this feature. There are some contrib solutions right now that enable the ability to do multiple file upload at the same time, as well as things like pausing and resuming uploads, like partial uploads, and then completing them later. Let's see, what are some of these? File resup module that allows you to do that. Let's see, drop zone.
Drop zone JS, yeah.
And Let's see if there's some other ones. File, resup, drop zone. I think there was a third one that I've seen before as well. There's another one, HTML5 upload. That is another backdrop contrib module. And so the question here that probably needs to be answered before anything is, what kind of approach are we looking for in core? One that uses like a JavaScript-based library, like what was that one that we just mentioned? Drop zone. Something that uses something like drop zone, or something that is just using the HTML5 capabilities that exist now, where HTML5 has been able to do multiple file uploads for quite some time, and Backdrop Core just hasn't ever supported that. So there are two different ways that we could potentially go about this: library driven or using just core browser functionality.
Nate, I remember when I was sort of working on config recipes with the idea that like I wanted to upload a batch of config files and not all of them or just one, that there was actually sort of a lack of support for that in Backdrop. Would this help with that kind of, like possibly with something like config recipes, or not? Is this more of a front end exclusive?
It's not just front end, because the way, like making it so that field module, file module, if you upload one, if you could select multiple files, then it needs to save multiple file entities on the back end when they save. But yeah, I guess it could be related in a way, Tim, because there's like this tiered level of things that need to happen here. That there's like the form API element that provides uploads needs to support multiple uploads first. And then the field module on top of the form API element also needs to be able to support it. And if we got that first level done, then yes, that would make it so that you could do things like, select 5 JSON files and then import those 5 JSON files together. But we have workarounds that you could do for the time being. Like you could zip them up together and then import that collection of 5 things. And I think that for config management, being able to import a partial config is a problem that I think that's something that like we should work out that problem. Like I just want to import 5 config files together, and not a whole config file thing. I think that's one thing that we could do as a standalone thing. Like we could zip them up for the time being and then import the 5 items, or in that interface for importing and exporting where it uses the text fields, we could support an array of config files like in a JSON string and import 5 of them at a time, or export 5 of them at a time. And I think those would be the intermediate steps that we could do to support that sort of thing, like without dealing with the multiple file upload. So I think it's like it could benefit that, but I don't think it's the primary problem.
Got it.
Yeah, and there were a few issues with uploading multiple files. Remember, we should take a look at what D8 and D9 have done, but I remember that at some point it was, for example, not when you're uploading files on a field, but through the add files link in the file management. And then when people upload, remember that file types can have fields. For example, images have alt tag field, alt name, or alt title, whatever it's called. So in Drupal, once, say, you uploaded multiple images, then you had multiple instances of add alt tag for this one because it's required, right? And this can happen in other field types, and it can happen in Backdrop as well. If the file type that you have has a custom required field added to it. So once the files are uploaded, then we need to take care of the additional dialogues that allow you to add that information before that the file entities get saved. So there's things to consider.
Yeah, I'm taking a look. Lauren joined the meeting. Welcome, Lauren. Really happy to have you here.
Lou.
I posted a very relevant module, HTML5 upload, a contrib module, which I'm taking a look at now. And my expectation of the amount of effort that it would take to support HTML5 uploads is that it would be a big undertaking. But this module accomplishes it in 100 lines of code, and it's the whole thing. And I'm not sure, Lauren, if you're able to speak to it more. I'm curious if this kind of approach could be adapted to core as something that is like, just.
So first of all, I didn't write the module. It was ported and then abandoned, and I just took it over to get a patch in that made it work. So I can't speak to the intricacies of it that well because all I did was add one patch to it, but it was ported from a sandbox in Drupal 7. It was never an official Drupal 7 module, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, really simple implementation.
It does allow, if a file field or an image field is multi-valued, it does allow you to just drag files onto it and drop more than one file at a time, and it uploads them appropriately. So,
I am completely floored here that that this works. This kind of it kind of shortcuts it though. This looks like it makes it so that it works for image and file fields, but would not provide the capability in the form API. It just kind of only works on those field versions, which is kind of interesting, and also kind of like, that's the main way that people use images and file fields in Backdrop anyway. So I'm kind of looking at this thinking that might be okay. I don't know. Very interesting though.
So that would be included, if it is to be included, that feature would be in the file module, right?
Correct. Yeah. File module and image module would need to be aware of the change as well. Yeah. But it looks like this implementation, it works on file and image fields, and it treats them in the exact same way, and it works for both of them. So that's interesting. My personal preference, like as far as like library versus HTML5 support, is that I would be strongly in favor of just using the HTML5 multiple file upload initially. That there's an HTML5 property for just multiple equals true, and then your browser lets you select multiple items. It doesn't necessarily provide all of the functionality that a JavaScript library might, but you can already like drag and drop onto a file upload in a browser, and the browser provides that functionality already. The progress bar, Backdrop Core provides a progress bar as well. We need to make sure that that works with multiple file uploads, but it should be possible as well. Just like what a library like Dropzone.js gets us against what we have in core already is a really small increase in functionality, I think. And adding another library that we need to update and maintain all the time could give us like a long-term maintenance concern. Not to mention like Dropzone.js is so like iterative upon HTML5 at this point that it's possible that in the near future it could be eclipsed by native browser support. Possibly.
Yep. Does the module handle media asset uploads, like from the content management, page, the file management page?
I don't think it does, this module as it is right now, because this module is ported from Drupal 7 and like Lauren said, a sandbox. And so it really was just like, I'm solving this one exact problem, and that's allowing you to upload multiple files into a file or image field. And Drupal 7 didn't have a file management page to upload files.
Okay.
Yeah, let's kind of keep going. Let's see, adding a reference module to core. The issue number is 1301.
I recall Mike working on it for the first few years of Backdrop's life, and then having a roadblock at some point. I can't remember what it was, and then it was left there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the roadblock was mainly upgrade paths from the other reference modules.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was too. There was the upgrade path, and then there was one other issue that we've had a discussion about this more recently, that file entities, they return the URI that is inconsistent with other types of entities. So when you link to a file, it goes directly to the file itself, and all other entities go to a page-based version, like node/10 or comment/10 or user/10. And files are exceptional in that they go directly to the file. And as far as like making it so that a global reference field was consistent, then we would need to make files like have a page that they linked to as well. One second. Sorry. So yeah, there's that other minor problem, or not minor, but problem of note. But yeah, I think the upgrade path is the really big holdup on this, because there's not only the one contrib module, there's like three, right? And so it's like, what do you do about node reference module and user reference module? And then there's references module and contrib. And I might be wrong. There might even be like a reference and references. No, I'm getting those confused with node and user reference. Never mind.
So here's my take. If we have the functionality in place and what we're missing is the migration bit, it seems that it's a big undertaking to do the migrations for all three modules or possible modules. Could we add the functionality as a hidden module in core, like do baby steps, and then support one of these modules at a time?
Yeah, I think
similar how we've done with automatic core updates, where we say coming soon. So we've done the auto updates and the automatic updates, the automatic self updates are coming relatively soon, whenever.
Oh, I remember the other one, entity reference, right? So there's entity reference as well. So reference module, the contrib version, backdrop contrib/reference, is the module that Mike had been working on as the candidate for what should be included in core. And it's written in a way that is like, it's written in the same style as the rest of core. It doesn't depend on any third-party things like entity API from 777 or entity plus from Backdrop. So it's made with no dependencies. It's targeted at core, and it's, I think, also reasonably well used. Let me look at what the usage statistics say for reference module. Oh, it's actually not that widely used, actually. But providing an upgrade path from reference module, the contrib version, to the core version would be like our other modules that we would just have to say, this module has been integrated into core. You know, it would raise the status message. When you run update.php, it would probably disable it and then tell you, hey, remove this module from your code base. So we have a process for incorporating modules like reference into core, that if there's a contrib version of it, then the core version just takes over it, and there's no schema change or anything that's really necessary. So I think we could do that and just make it so that there's one supported upgrade path for a module that conveniently at least has existed for several years now. So people have the opportunity to at least use it on their sites. But I'm afraid that most people still are using node reference and user reference module, which are the Drupal 7 equivalents, and it provides upgrade paths from Drupal 7. And so I think that the unblocking approach for this would be put reference module into core, move forward on that, and not provide a core-based upgrade path for node and user reference module, and let Contrib provide a solution for moving from one to the other.
So Mike was working on the reference singular module or references?
The singular version,
Singular.
reference, yeah.
And
References module is really just a collection of node reference and user reference module from Drupal 7.
okay, because in Contrib, from what I see, there's references that has a little bit less than 300 installations, and then entity reference, which has 180 close. But I don't see any reference, or at least not in the top 100.
Yeah, reference module is not widely used. It only has 5 listed like installs. So it's the least popular solution because it's not compatible with the Drupal 7 version. So if you're upgrading from Drupal 7, you upgrade it to the equivalent module in Backdrop, whether it was entity reference to entity reference, or node reference to node reference. But nobody was using reference module in Drupal 7 because it didn't exist. So the Backdrop native version is the least frequently used.
Gregory, I think there is a reference module in Contrib, but I think it's not been released. It was there just specifically to prepare for core.
Oh, is that the problem? Yeah, Laren is saying in the chat here that it doesn't have a formal release yet, which of course would seriously impede its adoption.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a big warning. This module is still under development and should only be used with the understanding that it will likely need to have patches applied. That's in the README.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I recall, I think that they created this Contrib module just to get ready to bring it into core. It wasn't really intended to be.
And maybe that the no releases thing is intentional. Yeah.
Yes. So, and this issue was just updated last September for the original issue for the meta for add references to core, and it defines 3 blockers there that need to be, define label and status entity keys in core, handle file stream wrappers, and add view functionality to the entity API.
For what it's worth, there's a issue in the queue there somewhere. I don't know the number offhand, where somebody has provided a PR that does an upgrade path from references, as well as a few other things. And I pulled the piece out that does the upgrade from references, and I ran that, and it worked. With the one caveat that I had to do a clear cache at the end, I think, because it got a white screen. So I think that PR basically just needed to have the upgrade path to references pulled out as a separate pull request, if I remember correctly. But it seems like the bulk of that is ready.
Yeah, it's interesting that looking at this, we were talking about putting this in all the way back in 2016 as being like, oh, we could almost like push this in like in 4 years ago as being like ready, but there were some caveats there.
I just put in the chat the one that I tried was actually an upgrade path from entity reference, and it functioned very smoothly, except the temporary white screen of death until I cleared caches.
Yeah, Laren, do you have any thoughts yourself about what we would do with such an upgrade path? Like, if we put it in, like, how would you execute it? How would we convey that to users? Like, I'm not sure, like, compatibility wise, like if they were building on top of any reference or they form altered it. I'm not really sure if there's any, any realistic way for us to say that you can safely do this to your site. It seems like it'd have to be like an opt-in type.
Yeah, I think I
approach.
saw Herb Duel commented somewhere along the way too about that this would have to be optional. Some people may want to keep the old version. We can't force them to do anything here. So there had to be some way to opt in, I think.
And in Drupalland, unless I'm horribly wrong, they've converted the whole tags, like vocabularies to entities, taxonomy, sorry, to entities, entity reference, and that's what they're using now.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on that. That's a whole nother can of worms. That's like, what about the other reference modules? Like core includes term reference module and taxonomy. I mean, it's not a module, but term reference is part of taxonomy module. And would we replace that?
Can these things be follow-ups?
Yeah.
Like,
I
yeah,
would say so.
Yeah, so long as we make sure that the technical solution doesn't cause any blockers for those, or at least that we can think of.
Yeah, it could be, a little bit strange that for a site builder, like you could set up a term reference field, or there would just be reference field that is a generic reference. And the way reference module is right now, it includes taxonomy terms as well. So there would be two ways of doing taxonomy term references, one that is the generic way and one that is the specific way. And right now they also have different capabilities, because term reference can create a taxonomy term on the fly, like free tagging style, and entity reference, the reference module cannot. And when Drupal 8 kind of merged them together, they made it so that you could auto create any type of entity on the fly by making a reference to it, which is a little bit weird, because like you could like make a blog post just by specifying a title, for example, or a comment just by specifying a title. And that feature doesn't make sense for anything really other than taxonomy terms, because you end up with like broken nodes that only have titles, because it doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's kind of like if you had it one place, it has to be in every place.
Okay.
But yes, I agree that I think that could probably be follow up. Yep.
Can I ask Nate, because we're running out of time, is the purpose of this discussion or other discussions just to like talk about these things and hopefully give people information so that they can get excited and advocate for these issues? Or are we hoping to sort of like try to build consensus and say, let's as a group go after this, let's pick one and try to go after it?
I think, great question. I think it's both. I think, I think that by providing updates on where these things are, it will put it to the front of our minds as being like, what is necessary here? And then hopefully spark someone's interest in potentially undertaking these things. I know just like reading through these, my, I could do that. Brain starts going,
Yeah, and also it helps to know how close they are. Because if out of those, I don't know, 10, 8 IAMs that we have, some of them are 80% there, it makes sense to kind of, do those that are low hanging fruits if they are.
Right.
Yeah, the alternative that you suggest, Tim, is interesting as well. It's like, as a group, could we just say, like, pick one of them and commit to it, as saying we really could do this thing, this release. Because any one of these things would be a huge feature for us, definitely a headline making thing that would be quite an accomplishment for any single release. And if we were able to choose one of them and, get several people committed to it, then it would really increase the chances of it getting done.
Okay. Well, the next one on the list, config management, has the advantage of somebody like references is one that everybody keeps saying is important. We should do it. but I don't know that there's been any momentum on it lately. The config recipes one is one where we do have a little bit of momentum coming out of the last Backdrop Live. And, you know, like what's more important, an issue with momentum that's less important, or an issue that's important but with less momentum? I don't know. Like, I think references to me might be a more important thing for the overall community, but it's also got the less of momentum. I'd love to see config recipes, and it seems to have a little momentum. So how do we weigh that?
Yeah, config recipes has the obvious issue that we have discussed recently. So config recipes has a meta issue at 3763, but it has a bug fix actually at 3224 that is a pull request that just needs review that would really substantially help the concept of recipes by making it so that you could include fields in a module's default config. And that would make it so that, you know, you could make a recipe and it would just be a module.
Yeah.
This is one that's I'm not even sure that we even need an advocate for it, because it's like, it's just like, we just need to review this pull request. It's there, it's working. And we just need some eyeballs on it. It's even slated for a bug fix release, not even a minor release. Sure. So its capability to get completed is like, it's right there.
Yep. Although I'll just raise that I think that there's the technical issue of making it happen, but there's also sort of a policy decision, because so once technically you can have a recipe, what do we do with them in our environment, right? I don't think we have a project type for recipes. And if my understanding is that the current thought is that basically you can create a module that is in a sense a recipe. So are recipes just modules? Or do we want to create a new project type for them? That also will have to be addressed, but that's slightly different.
Yeah, because in my head, recipes sound more like profiles rather than modules. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. They could tie in a little bit to the additional metadata for modules issue that projects now can specify tags in their info file, I think it is, and that we could just have like a whole category of modules just called recipes that is just like intended to be like, hey, this module pre-configures stuff for you, you know, and that could just be a way of categorizing a specific type of module.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, like you say, Tim, we are running really short on time. We only have a couple of minutes before we need to hit a stop. So I think I'll run through the other items here that at least are on the list. Adding an icon font to core, issue 364. Automatic updates, issue 2018. Expose fields to visibility conditions, issue 4728. This one we have been talking about on a weekly basis, is one that Jen has been interested in. And then expose the file name filter to the media library dialog, issue 3293. And this issue has been unblocked as well. Laren has figured out an alternative approach there. So that one also is moving forward kind of on its own right now. So those are the items that I just kind of took the topmost items from the survey. There's more of them though that are valid as well. Oh, and we also have, of course, initiatives. So we have telemetry that is also moving along on its own pace. So yeah, what we do with these items is the open question, Tim. I think you kind of nailed it. Maybe we need to make it some or have a discussion about like which approach we want to use, or if we do the normal free for all, like, hey, if you're interested in it, then it moves that forward, because that is the default behavior.
If we pick one, we need to find people, or at least one person to start working on it. That's the current sort of like paradigm of having the advocacy for the minor releases. If we sort of like stick to the current plan of allowing people to work on other things, because it's not the one thing that we pick, that others might want to work on other things. Maybe we can still go by what we used to do, but pick one and then sort of like make a commitment as a community that the focus is going to be on that. And it could be one of the ones that we have in the list currently, or it could be an additional one, right? So what I'm saying is we have one that we should strive to get in as soon as possible with the next release, and then we have the regular list of people, the usual suspects that work on other smaller things, or not necessarily smaller, but other things.
Okay.
Maybe that's a discussion for the next dev meeting when we have more people on board.
I think
Yeah.
Nate's only got 1 minute, so.
Yeah, I do. So I'm gonna have to say, yeah, let's do it next week. Let's keep talking about our road mapping next week, and let's discuss on Zulip as well. And the forum, I think, would probably be the best place for discussing this. Like, what should we do in 1.20? So those two avenues are where we can discuss in the meantime, and then next week we'll just kind of pick up this discussion and can keep talking about where 1.20 is headed. That's it. Yeah, I hate to leave when things just get interesting, as it seems to always happen, but yeah, we'll wrap up for today, and we'll talk all again next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks, folks. Really appreciate